At least it has that Terra Steel available, and here we go, trainers. We are into the grand finals in Stuttgart. Tornadus and Golden-Go hitting the field for Nils, Hisuian Arcanine, and that Tornadus hitting the field for Lorenzo. What a lovely swan song for Regulation Set E here in EU, having these two Tornadus so prevalent in the format facing off against each other.
They've got themselves a little bit of a date in the finals here, but these Tornadus are going to be able to both set up Tailwind for their respective partners. Arcanine in a great position here, putting pressure onto the Golden-Go, maybe forcing Nils to think about going for a Terra, but if you commit that Terra too early and Lorenzo doesn't go for a Flare Blitz straight on into it, maybe you're in trouble a little bit later. A really nice protect instead from Golden-Go on Nils' side of the field.
Yeah, we see it time and time again where Terra early on can spell defeat later in the game, but that's going to be matching Tailwinds coming out. Why risk it if you can get it up on this very first turn? There's a Flare Blitz coming into Nils' Tornadus. Will be surviving on that Focus Sash. Really nice option into that Pokemon there. It does have that Water Terra type, so interesting that Lorenzo was able to call that as Tailwind is matched piece for piece. Let's see what this Golden-Go decides to do.
A really good turn there for Lorenzo, taking advantage of Golden-Go playing a little bit more defensively. It could have gone for the Terra, it could have gone for a nasty plot, but Lorenzo reading into that Nils didn't want to commit the Terra early and taking maximal advantage of that, making sure this Tornadus is down to the Sash. Lorenzo has the Bleak Wind Storm on his side of the field. Any attack into this Tornadus is going to be enough.
It will, but there's Icy Wind over on Nils', so able to get maximum benefit from that Tailwind, and Lorenzo's does not. So Rillaboom joining the field. It's Terra time, trainers. This is going to be going into the Tornadus over on the side of Lorenzo. It's going to be that Steel Terra type, the most common Terra type right now, onto Tornadus, letting out that metallic roar here in the finals. There's that Icy Wind. Super effective onto the Rillaboom, no longer onto the Tornadus, but crucially providing that speed drop onto both of the Pokemon. So Nils has that Tailwind advantage. Tornadus only on 1 HP, but that's all it needs. Here comes a big Make It Rain. It's not enough for the knockout onto the Rillaboom. Tornadus, of course, taking it much better than it would have done pre-terastallization.
And there's a lot of damage that Lorenzo has taken on his side of the field, but not enough to provide any particular fear for the position going into the next turn, as the Bleak Wind does get the double connect onto Nils' Golden-Go and the Tornadus, knocking out the Tornadus, not getting the speed drop on the Golden-Go, but it's giving a free switch into that Rillaboom there for Nils.
Yeah, Rillaboom is joining the field, has an active fake out on this turn. Golden-Go still on the field here. Make It Rain. It didn't have a nasty plot set up, so, you know, still dealing respectable chip damage. We had a little bit of a sneak peek there, Ben, and the Regidrago is not in the back. You have to assume that Lorenzo may well have brought that Fluttermane just as a counter, because without that, it could be a very Regidrago weak team. So perhaps bluffing on that front for Nils there, and seems like he's deciding it's time for this Golden-Go to get nasty.
I think so, yeah. Fake out coming into the Rillaboom and stopping it from acting this turn. It's a nasty plot coming out from the Golden-Go. It's going to be able to raise its special attack to 1 stage of increased power here. And Bleak Wind Storm again double connecting onto Nils' side of the field, getting the speed drop on the Rillaboom, but I think most crucially, not getting the speed drop onto that Golden-Go. Rillaboom on Lorenzo's side has taken a speed drop, and so even with the Tailwind up on both of these trainers' sides of the field, it's looking like that Golden-Go's getting ready for a big, powerful attack.
Yeah, it really does, and the Rillaboom over on Lorenzo's side does have high horsepower. There are no Pokemon in Nils' 6 in his team that have that Intimidate, so Lorenzo doesn't have to worry about something like Hisuian Arcanine pivoting in to drop those attack stats. On the other hand, Nils does with that Arcanine in the back for Lorenzo. Now, Golden-Go doesn't mind about that too much, but it would be taking heavy super effective damage from something like a Flare Blitz. Of course, Golden-Go only at +1, as you said, Ben, because it had used Make It Rain before, taking a drop to its special attack then.
And we'll have to see how Nils really pilots this Golden-Go here, because if you go for too many Make It Rains in a row, your Golden-Go stops doing the damage that you need it to do in this situation. So Urshifu switching in for the Rillaboom, making sure that Rillaboom isn't going down to another Bleak Wind Storm, but taking a Grassy Glide for its troubles here. A lot of damage, but Shadow Ball correctly targeting into that Rillaboom, getting a critical hit, but no impact whatsoever there. Rillaboom goes back to its trainer, and that Urshifu's probably feeling quite good about its position.
Yeah, critical hit just for style points there. The Life Orb recoil is going to be taken away by that grassy terrain recovery. So really, Golden Go really pleased that that has been set up. That is Tailwind down and out for Nils. Lorenzo, of course, still has that Tornadus on the field. It's still here in that Steel Terra type, really bulking up the longevity. Fluttermane has indeed joined the field. It's got those choice specs, so whatever it locks into, it will have to be going for that move only until it switches out. And interestingly, the other Pokemon in the back for Lorenzo is also carrying a choice item.
And that's going to be that Arcanine, and I think this is a great switch in here for the Fluttermane. You can go for a Dazzling Gleam. I think the difficulty here is whether or not you lock into a move that can knock out the Golden Go now, or whether or not you're actually targeting down into that Urshifu. It depends on the training of this Tornadus on Lorenzo's side of the field. If it's naturally going to be faster than the Urshifu, then you can launch out those Bleak Wind Storms and not necessarily worry about setting up that Tailwind. If not, it becomes a little bit more dicey here.
Oh, Nils really down to the wire there. Speaking of dicey locking in his moves, I think he was just about in time as the Terra is going to be coming out from his side of the field. It's going to be that Water Terra type. So crucially, this Urshifu will no longer be taking super effective damage from those big Bleak Wind Storms or indeed Fairy type moves coming out from that Fluttermane. Golden Go is going to be scouting out here. Doesn't like staring down another ghost. Gets a little bit spooked. And that is the Shadow Ball going into that Protector and opening here for Nils. Let's see if Nils is able to capitalize on it.
Surging Strike,
big Surging Strikes going first into that Fluttermane. That's easily enough for the knockout.
No Tailwind coming out here from this Tornadus. The Fluttermane is not able to protect itself from that one-hit KO. 2 hits from Surging Strikes, easily enough to pick up the knockout there. Bleak Wind Storm, the follow-up from Tornadus. Valuable information for these trainers going into Game 2. It is enough to pick up the KO on Urshifu, but with that grassy terrain, with that leftovers on the Golden Go, it's looking like it's sitting pretty here in the final few turns of this Game 1 in Stuttgart.
Yeah, Golden Go is still on that field. Rillaboom is in the back. The grassy terrain turns are ticking down, though. Arcanine joining the field for the final time in this game. No more switching out available. Rillaboom will be taking this Intimidate drop as a result as it's launched onto the field. Golden Go really nice and set up here with that one Nasty Pull-Its plus 1 of its special attack. And it might now be time for Nils to go on the offensive. Both of these trainers down to their final 2 Pokemon. It's the regulation set. He mascots over on Lorenzo's side as a fake out comes out into Arcanine.
And it's going to be a follow-up of the Make It Rain from that Golden Go. Easily enough to pick up the KO on Tornadus. Tornadus hanging on, though, because of its Terra Steel. The Golden Go going down to neutral stages of special attack. Taking a bit of Life Orb chip there. Bleak Wind Storm going to be enough to pick up the KO on that Tornadus. But unless you get the speed drop on this Golden Go... Oh, you do! You do! But because of that grassy terrain recovery, because of that leftovers recovery, Nils is going to be able to get a lot of health back here. Going to be able to protect... I'm not sure. The grassy terrain finishing off this turn. So no more recovery other than the leftovers there. Wow. This is coming down to the wire, Charlie.
Yeah, it really is. What an end game we have here. A speed drop on the Golden Go. Shadow Ball can be coming out. Bleak Wind Storm, of course, would be not very effective, and Shadow Ball going first anyway into that Tornadus. That's enough to wrap up the game for Nils, but perhaps not in as convincing a fashion as he'd have liked. As it is, in this grand final, it's Nils 1 game up against Lorenzo.
1 game up, 1 game closer to taking home the crown of regional champion here. He's keeping his cool. You can see that here. I'm sure he's very happy to be 1 game up, but there's still potentially 2 games left to play here. I want to call out how well Nils played that game where, you know, he lost the Tornadus really early on and wasn't able to get a second Tailwind up, but that didn't matter. He was able to get that Rillaboom into a position where it could support the Golden Go. A cheeky little KO there onto the Fluttermane as well, making exactly the right calls when he needed to be able to take that game. But it's important to note that if Lorenzo had maybe targeted into the Urshifu instead of the Golden Go in that position, situation, it would have been Lorenzo's game. So as tight as it can be.
Yeah, really, really tight. This is the kind of calls that come out in the grand finals. And of course, Nils had got that Icy Wind speed drop onto that Tornadus early on in the game with that Tailwind expiring. So the speed drop on the Golden Go sort of like for like in that situation. And approaching this game too, Lorenzo was talking to me just before this match about how he feels he has the harder matchup into Nils' team. Nils remaining calm and collected, but bringing that Flutter Mane, unfortunately wasn't able to get as much out of it as he'd have liked. Had a Shadow Ball been going into that Golden Go, that could have been huge, but you know, Golden Go has that Protect available, so really needing to pivot around carefully.
And the problem with that situation, if you're in Lorenzo's shoes, is that you have to go for a Shadow Ball, because if you don't, then and you go for a Dazzling Gleam instead, then the Golden Go remains a Steel type, and it's not going to go down to a combination of Bleak Windstorm and the Dazzling Gleam there. Now, though, looking into Game 2, and looking at Lorenzo's team, what are you thinking, Charlie, of Pokémon or changes in the way that Lorenzo can play the match to put it further in his favor? Yeah,
what's really interesting is that Lorenzo's Golden Go is holding those leftovers rather than the Life Orb, so would really, really need to get set up with a nasty plot before dishing out damage, whereas Nils does have that luxury of being able to go for the faster damage output more immediately. The question is, of course, for Lorenzo, does Nils bring that Regidrago this time, which could completely change the game plan? So this is how open Team Sheet can affect the game even before you get into the match. The mind games really are real here. So I think Lorenzo still has to cover for that Regidrago, bringing the Flutter Mane, but ultimately, you know, still played that game 1 so well, but into this game 2, trying to pivot around, just try and out-pivot Nils, eke out that little bit more mental fortitude.
And it's the tried and tested Urshifu and Tornadus on the field there for Lorenzo. Nils going for Tornadus and Golden Go that worked for him in Game 1. And the one disadvantage of carrying the Focus Sash on Nils' side of the field is that you do get knocked out in free Surging Strikes, whereas Lorenzo carrying that Rocky Helmet has been trained to be able to deal with those big attacks. I wouldn't be surprised if Tornadus on Lorenzo's side of the field was probably going to go for the Terra Steel again. Just make sure that you're not falling foul of those Life Orb Make It Rain right off the bat, but it's going to be a Terra Steel coming out here from Nils' Golden Go. It's going on the offensive.
Golden Go taking a leaf out of Tornadus' book from the previous game and becoming that full Steel type, giving an even bigger boost to those Make It Rains. This time it's going to be the Urshifu over on Lorenzo's side of the field going into that Terra Water. Urshifu is splashing around quite happily, singing and dancing, not quite in the rain, but at least under that fountain on top of its head. Here comes that Tailwind over on Nils' side of the field. Is it going to be matched over on Lorenzo's side? Yes, it is. So now comes down to stalling that out. Nils was able to get that Icy Wind off in Game 1. Let's see if he's able to do it in Game 2. Make It Rain coming out, boosted by Terra Steel. It's that Life Orb. It's going to be not quite enough for the knockout onto the Tornado, surviving on a sliver of HP. That's an invisible Focus Sash, everyone. That is a Rocky Helmet being held by that Tornadus. Here comes a big Terra Water Surging Strikes into the Golden Go. This is looking like enough damage, and that's going to be the Terra option for Nils out of the game already.
It's going to be enough.
It's going to be enough
to take the KO on this Golden Go. So one and done here for this Golden Go, getting a big Make It Rain off, but not carrying the Choice Specs, rather the Life Orb, and so not able to pick up the KO on that bulky Tornadus. Lorenzo saving the Terra Steel there, not actually committing it, and instead figuring that the Urshifu was the Pokemon that would be more effective to be going for its Terra. Urshifu for Nils joining the field here now, gets the opportunity to go for either a close combat or a Surging Strikes, potentially into the Urshifu on Lorenzo's side of the field. And this is where having that choice Focus Sash and having that extra speed on the Tornadus really does come in clutch for Nils, because he's able to launch out an Icy Wind very easily. If it connects on both targets, it's going to make for a lot of damage going into Lorenzo's side.
Yeah, it really will. And of course, you're running Icy Wind over the Bleak Wind Storm over on Nils' side. So, you know, a wind move for a wind move, able to mitigate the speeds over onto Lorenzo. And that's a super effective Icy Wind onto both. It's a double connect. That is Tornadus down and out for Lorenzo. So if Nils has his own Tornadus Tornadus remaining after the Tailwind expires would be able to set that up again. Here comes a close combat into that Rillaboom. Really, really good damage. One more Icy Wind might not actually be quite enough to pick up the knockout there, especially after grassy terrain recovery. But this Rillaboom has seen better days.
It certainly has, and yeah, another close combat will easily be enough to pick up the knockout, but you've got to be careful of that Rillaboom going for a grassy glide. Once you've got that defense drop on Urshifu, you're not going to be able to as easily survive those big attacks. Of course, you have to then contend with the fact that this Tornadus has got Air Slash. It's a pretty consistent move. Rillaboom can be knocked out from this range by an Air Slash, and so if you go for that grassy glide into the Urshifu rather than fake out into the Tornadus, maybe you're risking your Rillaboom going down, and later you're not going to be able to knock out that Urshifu on Nils' side of the field.
Yeah, Nils does have that Rillaboom in the back. We have that privileged position of being able to see, but the Rillaboom could be putting a stopper in the works here. It looks like it's going to be joining the field instead. Rillaboom versus Rillaboom. Urshifu not liking staring into the mirror over on the other side. Fake out is indeed coming out into that Tornadus. Won't be doing anything on this turn. Here comes a big Surging Strikes. Terra Water boosted. It will be going into that Tornadus. So that is the Tailwind advantage down for both of these trainers. And Nils is down to his final two Pokemon. It's just that Rillaboom and the Urshifu.
Rillaboom and Urshifu on both sides of the field here, where now it's Nils that's going to have the fake out priority here. Neither of these players will have the speed advantage, but if I'm not mistaken, it's quite possible that that Arcanine is in the back there. If it is, and you're able to knock out this Urshifu that's just come in for Nils, then maybe you've got a great shot at winning the game and taking this to a game 3 if you're Lorenzo. If you've got the Flutter Mane in the back, it's the Rillaboom that you've got to be targeting down and knocking out, so there isn't that combination of Aqua Jet and Grassy Glide putting pressure onto the Flutter Mane. Maybe if you can do that, or if you can sort of stall things out until the grassy terrain is off the field, maybe you've got a little bit of a different scenario. But with that Rillaboom switching out, it's that Arcanine in the back.
It's going to be the Arcanine joining the fray, not the Flutter Mane. We now have the reveal of all of Lorenzo's Pokemon. There's an attack drop to both of Nils's, both physical attackers. That's a fake out coming out into the Arcanine. What has Nils locked into with that Urshifu? It's going to be Surging Strikes onto Lorenzo's own. We're doing so nice to catch that Arcanine on the switch in with a very super effective Surging Strikes. As it is, Lorenzo's Urshifu brought down very low indeed. More pivoting potential, of course, over on Lorenzo's side with that classic Firewater Grass Core. This is a close combat with a critical hit into Nils' Rillaboom. Down and out in a one-hit knockout.
Wow, taking out that Rillaboom there is absolutely crucial. Rillaboom with the Arcanine in the back, not necessarily the target that you want to be going for there, especially with that Splash Plate boosted Aqua Jet as Tailwind peters out on both trainers' sides of the field. But you have got that Rillaboom in the back for Lorenzo, so there's an opportunity for that Choice Band boosted Extreme Speed and another close combat to come out into the Urshifu. Probably wrap up this game for Lorenzo. We're taking the finals, Charlie, to a game 3.
Yeah, it looks like we will be. Urshifu on Lorenzo's side is going to go down for good measure, bringing that Rillaboom in. But of course, when you have access to Fake Out, another Extreme Speed, and then a follow-up Grassy Glide, assuming the terrain will still be available, that is going to be the game in Lorenzo's favor. So, critical hit onto that Rillaboom. Nils, of course, really doesn't like to see it. Perhaps on the back foot anyway in this particular game, but we will be going to a game 3. Valuable information for both of these trainers. We love to see a game 3. I'm sure Nils does not.
You know what, Charlie? I'm just looking at this board position, and that grassy terrain has been on the field for quite a long time here. I'm wondering if there is a route there for Nils to be able to win the game with a little bit of grassy terrain recovery, getting that Surging Strikes into the Rillaboom after grassy terrain has expired.
Yeah, maybe.
And then following up with an Aqua Jet. If this Urshifu is able to take 2 Extreme Speeds after this recovery, I don't know. It's a close one. The grass is disappearing right now. But maybe there's a route for Nils to still win this match.
Oh, it's very tricky because, of course, there could be a wood hammer coming out from Rillaboom. Nils is just reflecting on all of this information. What is Nils going to be able to do here to try and get something back so that it doesn't bring it to a game 3? Aquajet, that's going to be huge damage onto the Arcanine. Urshifu has taken an Intimidate drop, though, something to bear in mind. And the more close combats it goes for, the more its defenses are lowered. But how apt that we have a Fire Water Grass core of our own right here on the field, Ben.
Yeah, every Pokemon pinning the other Pokemon, making sure that it's going for the right moves here. Whether or not this Surging Strikes is going to be able to pick up the knockout, that's really close as to whether that second Extreme Speed is going to be enough. We've got the first Surging Strikes, ladies and gentlemen. Second one is looking very close. It might hang on. It might it's hanging on by a sliver. Lorenzo is going to be taking this to a game 3.
Game 3 coming out from these trainers. Woodhammer able to seal the deal for Lorenzo. Oh my word, Ben, the legacy experience of these wonderful trainers really being brought to bear in what couldn't be a better grand final here in Stuttgart. If you're just joining us, trainers, you're just in time. We're going to a game 3 in the Stuttgart Regional Championships grand final.
It's all coming down to this. Both of these trainers have been battling so successfully to take home the champion crown this weekend. They've made it all the way to the finals. They've won a game apiece. Now it is one game of Pokemon that will be deciding who we will be crowning as champion.
Yeah, I'm looking at that Regidrago, Ben, and I'm wondering in game 3 whether Nils goes for broke, but the Pokemon he's been bringing have been such a good core for him that maybe it would be too much of a risk in this position. But Lorenzo able to capitalize on the position he had. Of course, that close combat critical hit into Nils's Rillaboom, securing the knockout, was very fortunate, but Nils went immediately for that Terror on the Golden Go in turn 1, and you know, it was able to get some momentum for him, but in the later stages of the game, perhaps coming to bite him.
It certainly could have been, and you know, that is what these trainers are all working towards with these games. Everything comes down to such fine margins, and you know that your opponent isn't going to be able to give you too many opportunities to have a mistake in your game plan here. And that's so true of this final so far. Nils taking game 1 where he was able to take advantage of the Flutter Mane coming out on Lorenzo's side of the field. Lorenzo seeing in game 2 that the Regidrago didn't come to the game, so maybe it's better to leave that Flutter Mane on the bench in game 2, and I think that gave him the resources that he needed to clutch out that game 2 here. Now going into game 3, it's anyone's guess how these trainers are going to be reacting. If I was Nils in this situation, coming into the finals, this is the time to make a bit of a swing here. You saw the Flutter Mane wasn't in game 2. Maybe it's time for that Regidrago.
Maybe it is, and of course, perhaps Nils is conditioning Lorenzo into thinking the Regidrago isn't coming because that Flutter Mane wasn't brought then, and it worked out well for Lorenzo, but that could entirely flip the tables here. A Pokemon that's been so fantastic for Nils throughout this tournament. It all comes down to this, trainers. It's game 3 in the grand finals in Stuttgart. We've had a fantastic weekend of intense battles, but none more intense than the one we are about to see. It's Nils Dunlop versus Lorenzo Silvestrini. It's game 3, and we've got the leads.
Tornadus, Urshifu coming out like in game 2. Tornadus and Golden Go coming out for Nils, and these trainers are going to be staring each other down yet again. As a reminder, in game 1, both of the Golden Go and the Urshifu went for their Terror. They launched out big attacks, and the Golden Go went back to Nils without being able to pick up a key knockout on Lorenzo's Tornadus. And so I'm wondering this turn if we're going to maybe see a little bit of a similar interaction, especially with the Golden Go a little bit faster than the Urshifu, but maybe without the Terror this time.
Maybe without the Terror. It's certainly going to be Urshifu going for that Terror Water. It's going to be maximizing the damage output of its water-type moves. It's here to stay in game 3 on this turn 1, going for that immediate Terror. Tornadus will be keeping itself safe this time in order to perhaps stagger the Tailwind, which is being set up on Nils' side of the field. Currently the speed advantage over there, and it's a big Make It Rain that's coming out, but mitigated by the Urshifu, which will be taking not very effective damage. That's still a lot of damage, though, thanks to that Life Orb coming out. Golden Go taking that drop to its special attack. Nils perhaps wanting to alter a nasty plot later in the game if it's going to have the chance, as the Surging Strikes comes out into Nils' Tornadus. Fortunately, Tornadus has been able to get that Tailwind up, so it's done its crucial job right now, but Nils already down a Pokemon in Game 3.
And I really like the way that Lorenzo has played that turn, not taking the damage on the Tornadus, staggering that Tailwind and getting it off next turn instead of this turn. Of course, you're letting the Urshifu take the brunt of that Make It Rain. It doesn't do too much damage because it's a resisted hit, still a lot of damage, but that Golden Go is now at one stage of decreased special attack, and so now this Tornadus is in a little bit of a better position to, one, set up the Tailwind without taking all of the damage that it did in Game 2, sorry, and also to be able to launch out those Bleakwind Storms against Pokemon like Rillaboom that Nils has got in the back.
Rillaboom joining the fray here, and with it that grassy terrain. It's threatening that Urshifu, of course, also threatening a Fake Out, and that is the Terra burned over on Lorenzo's side, but Nils still has it available, and that could be crucial in order to tie up this game. It looks like Nils is considering it heading into Game 2, maximizing the damage output of this Golden Go. Golden Go is going to get rich or get knocked out trying, going for that Terra Steel, is able to launch out big Make It Rains. It's at -1 of its special attack, but the Terra Steel and the Life Orb will be mitigating that somewhat. There comes that Tailwind over on Lorenzo's side. It's been staggered. Lorenzo will have one more turn of Tailwind to work with. That's a big Wood Hammer coming out into the Tornadus for Lorenzo. Let's see what this Golden Go is able to achieve after the Shifu will be moving. Which of them is going first? It will be that Golden Go, going for that big Make It Rain into both of these Pokemon. It's not enough onto the Urshifu. It is enough onto the Tornadus. How is this Urshifu going to be responding?
It's going to be responding with a big Surging Strikes, and wouldn't be surprised to see that Golden Go being knocked out this turn. But some crucial information for both of these trainers in this Game 3, that Wood Hammer did in fact go before the Urshifu was able to launch out that Surging Strikes. If that Wood Hammer or even a Grassy Glide went into that slot this turn, then it would have been a completely different story. Golden Go would have got the damage onto the field, but then you would have maybe allowed some Bleakwind Storms to launch out into that Rillaboom in the later stages of the game. It's going to be Rillaboom and the last Pokemon left standing for Nils. 2 Pokemon remaining unrevealed yet for Lorenzo.
Exactly. Nils is really cashing in all his chips there on the Golden Go, going for that Terra. It's down already. Fake Out on the field, joining it for Lorenzo. Now, Rillaboom and Urshifu versus Rillaboom and Urshifu. 2 Pokemon who have been fantastic throughout the Regulation Set E metagame. Real mind games here, and of course, what does Lorenzo have in the back? If it's that Hisuian Arcanine, ample Fake Out support, ample Intimidate support, but it would be taking super effective damage from the Urshifu, but keeping itself safe this turn.
Is the Detect coming out from both of these Urshifu, making sure that they're not targeting or not taking any damage from these opposing Rillabooms. A read on the Arcanine switch in there for Nils, going for the high horsepower into the Urshifu, and it's all damage going into these Urshifu. That is the key Pokemon that these trainers are focusing down here this turn.
Yeah, as the recovery of the grassy terrain is coming into effect right now. It's so tempting to hover over that high horsepower as Nils is doing with that Hisuian Arcanine in the back. Grassy Glide, of course, would be doing neutral damage to a Hisuian Arcanine if that is the Pokemon that Lorenzo has. And Urshifu, we saw how big those close combats were in the previous game. Urshifu, of course, the most valuable Pokemon in Regulation Set E with that Unseen Fist ability. This is the reveal of Lorenzo's 4th and final Pokemon. It will be that Arcanine. It's Firewater Grass once again on the field.
And the Arcanine is going to get that all-important Intimidate off onto both Rillaboom and Urshifu on Nils' side of the field. It's a Wood Hammer starting out the turn. It's going to be going into the Rillaboom, doing a good amount of damage, but it will come down to whether this Urshifu can critical hit, and it cannot. It's going to be the Rillaboom taking that attack like a champ here, responding with a Wood Hammer. The Urshifu is going down. The Arcanine is sitting pretty on the field in front of that Rillaboom, but it will come down to the training of these Pokemon. Rillaboom on Nils' side of the field has been shown to be very, very speedy, but is it speedy enough to outspeed this Arcanine.
Well, the thing is, Lorenzo has that Tailwind advantage now, staggered out so well. Nils' Tailwind is gone. Lorenzo has one more turn remaining. Of course, Arcanine has that extreme speed anyway, but it's looking a little bit bleak, and even that Grassy Glide not enough for the knockout onto the Rillaboom. Here comes a Choice Band Flare Blitz. It's enough for the knockout. We have our winner here in the Grand Finals of Stuttgart. Well played to Nils, but your champion of the Stuttgart Regional Championships is Lorenzo Silvestrini. Big congratulations to our winner of the Stuttgart Regional Championships here. Lorenzo has played so well across the weekend. A 3-game set. Nils, a valiant contender, a finalist worthy of the title here.